Good evening, friends. I am Brother Siri, President of Buddhist Maha Vihara. First, before I start my presentation, I'd like to thank the Buddhist Gem Fellowship, BGF, for organizing this program. We feel very honored. This is the first time we are doing a presentation like this of a tour visit of Buddhist Maha Vihara. In the past, we've always had face-to-face or live sessions on weekends, showing people around Buddhist Maha Vihara and talking about ourselves. Today, the picture that you see right now, the slide here that you see, this is the if you want to say the religious side of Buddhist Maha Vihara, meaning it displays the shrine hall, the pagoda, and the Bodhi structure. Now, before I continue further with where we are and about Buddhist Maha Vihara, I'd like to show you another slide. My next slide. All right. I've shown here this slide. I'm trying to tell you where we are. What are we surrounded by in brickfields? You see down here a set of pictures of places of worship of other religions. You see Hindu temples, you see churches, you see a madrasa. In the area where we are, in this 1 square kilometer where we are, there are a total of about 17 places of worship. And this is where Buddhist Maha Vihara is. It's in an environment whereby literally every religion is represented, every race is represented, every people of different walks of life are represented. And we have evolved, we have grown and evolved in this environment, living very, very harmoniously with our neighbors for the last 130 years almost. This is an overview. What you see on the slide down here is an overview of my presentation today. I will talk a bit about Buddhist Maha Vihara, the history of Buddhist Maha Vihara, our buildings, resident monks, other resident organizations, visitors who have come to Buddhist Maha Vihara, our activities and publications. About Buddhist Maha Vihara itself, we are the oldest registered Buddhist organization in the Klang Valley. It was founded in 1894 by Sirisena Varna Society, and there's an interesting story to this of this founding of this organization. Yeah. But before I do that, here you would see our vision to be a leading international center for the learning, practice, and dissemination of the Buddha Dhamma. And there you will see our logo. Now, I'd like to explain this, how we formulated this, how we came about it. In 1995, we celebrated our 100 years of existence. We had a big ceremony, we had a big opening, we had many visitors mainly from Sri Lanka and from many parts of Malaysia. It was a grand occasion, etc. But however, when that was over, the question that came about at that point in time was that what do we do for the next 100 years? We have completed 100 years, so what is our journey? What is our journey forward? What is our vision? What's our mission? What's our motto? And we actually had about almost from mid-1995 to the year 2000, we had about 3 workshops talking about this, trying to see what is our directions, how is our move forward. And in the year 2000, we formulated this vision. After almost 4 or 5 years of discussion, brainstorming, we formulated this vision to be a leading international center for the learning, practice, and dissemination of the Buddha Dhamma. We also formulated at the same time our mission. The mission to provide a conducive environment to promote scholarship and study of the Buddha Dhamma, propagate the Buddha Dhamma, be the focus of the Buddhist activities for the larger community, foster Theravada Buddhist cultural and traditional practices. In this last point here, I'd like to stress this point. I do realize there are many organizations out there which are forming Buddhist organizations who would like to be identified as non-sectarian. At Buddhist Maha Vihara, we're very clear, we are very focused, and so we are Theravada Buddhists. We are Theravada Buddhists of the Sri Lankan tradition, And why do we do this? Because we believe that's our identity. We don't drift from there. We don't drive away from there, because that is how we started. That's the way we are. And we hope for the next 100 years, we'll continue to be as such. Next, this is our motto. This is not something that we created ourselves. These are the Buddha's words himself. Go forth for the good, happiness, and welfare of the many, out of compassion for the world. That is our motto. This is something that we picked out, saying advice from the Buddha, and this is where we are with this, and we plan to go forward with this motto. Birth of Buddhist Vihara itself. From humble beginnings, early Sinhalese Buddhist pioneers held a meeting on 4th February 1894. There was an attendance of 87 people, and their objective was to obtain a piece of land to build a temple. And it was believed at that point in time there were approximately 200 Sinhalese Buddhists in Malaya at that time. The little picture that you see on your right-hand side, on your left-hand side, is actually a picture of a petition that was signed by this is a sample. I know you have a tough time reading this. It's a bit of a strain on your eye, but that is a list. In fact, it's about 3 pages long. It's a list of 87 people, Sinhalese Buddhists, who had got together, signed a petition, and sent it to the then government, the British government that was there, requesting for a piece of land. We have identified this piece of land for the primary purpose to build a Buddhist temple. Right? How we began. Right? 1894, the society was formed. Land was obtained, and the foundation stone was laid. Now, before I move forward, I like to go back. How did Sinhalese, or people of Sri Lankan origin, come into Malaya at that point in time? Now, it is understood that in about 1870, the British government had signed an agreement, something called it was called the Pankor Engagement. And what that did was that it gave the license for the British government at that time to bring in people from different parts of their various other colonies. And one of the choice colonies at that time was the colony of Ceylon. And from that point in time, people of Ceylonese or Sinhalese origin from Ceylon were brought in. And this was way before, it was somewhere in 1870s when this process started. And the first few people who came from Ceylon to Malaya at that time were surveyors. They were working in the public work department in Sri Lanka or Ceylon. And they came into Malaya and they worked primarily in Perera. And they were surveyors. The first few people, Sri Lankan, who are documented that we can find, were surveyors who came from Sri Lanka. All right? And that's how the community began to grow, the Sinhala community began to grow. The second phase, or the second wave of Sinhalese Buddhists who came into the country was the Malayan railways, or the then Strait Settlements of Federated Malay States. When the railways were beginning to form, the British government brought many people, primarily carpenters and painters, to come and work in the Malayan railways. And why was this and how was this? The coaches that were brought were from UK, or the metal body or the undercarriage was from England. However, they brought artisans and carpenters and painters to build the coaches in Malaya. And that is why, if you take a look at our list of the people who signed, 87 people who signed, many of them were painters and carpenters and artisans who came to Malaya, brought by the British government, to build very famous buildings. Some of you may know the Sultan Abdul Samad building. And these artisans were brought in to Malaya to do that. Of course, when this happened, many of the folk who came from Sri Lanka to Malaya at that point in time were the men folk. So when they came over here, their families were not with them, their wives were not with them. And so they had a very lonely lifestyle. They were earning their money, but they were having a very lonely lifestyle. And one of the things that they were missing out on was they did not have a Theravada Buddhist temple. There were many Chinese temples, there were many churches, but there was no Theravada Buddhist temple at that point in time. And one of the dilemma came about is that when somebody passed away, There was neither a temple nor a monk to give them the last rites. And that is why the need and the urge to build the Theravada Buddhist temple came about. So at that time, they had applied for a piece of land, and the land was obtained and a foundation stone was laid. And this is the foundation stone that now lies here at Buddhist Maha Vihara in our main shrine hall. If you come to our main shrine hall on the right-hand side, you will see this particular foundation stone that was laid there. This particular foundation stone was laid by a Mrs. C.E. Spooner. Who is Mrs. C.E. Spooner? She was the wife of, Mr. Spooner, and he was actually the person in charge of the Public Works Department in Selangor. And she was invited to come and lay the foundation stone. If you take a look, if you can see very clearly, it's a bit blurred. It says down here, 25th August, 1894. This particular foundation stone is still there. And upon laying this particular foundation stone, the society which had formed at that time had actually presented a trowel, that you see a picture of it, a silver trowel, to Mrs. C.E. Spooner. And this particular picture, what is interesting is that when we celebrated our 100 years, we traced back Mrs. C.E. Spooner's grandchildren, and they had this particular trowel in their possession. They had taken a picture of it and sent it to us. And that's the picture that you see this. So 100 years later, this trowel was still with them. Now here, when the shrine room was first formulated or thought about or first created, this is the first Buddha image that was venerated at Buddhist Maha Vihara, or the Buddhist temple at that time in 1894. The shrine room itself was not completely built. The process of building, even though started in 1894, it is believed it took almost 4 to 8 years to complete the shrine room. However, the inner sanctum of this shrine room was completed early. We believe that this particular Buddha image was there. It has always been there for veneration since 1894. Today, this particular image is now lying in the International Buddhist Pagoda, and we have left it there as a memory to our founders. In 1895, the society, even though the society was formed in 1894, in 1895, it was officially registered, all right? And a monk's quarters was built. All right, I will show you a set of pictures down here. If you take a look at the top right-hand corner, that is actually the second monk's quarters that was there. It was a wooden structure. It was a wooden structure that was there. It was a very dilapidated building. It was in use for many, many years until, in 1895 onwards, it was built there, until we built this first brick monk's quarters. Of course, you see our late chief over there, but that was actually the late chief wasn't there first, but that was probably the first brick monk's quarters that was built. Later, the monk's quarters expanded and it was built like this. And you can see the extension at the side here. I hope you can see where my pointer is. That was the extension was just built. This is the original arch, semicircular arch. And here, later when it expanded, this particular portion was extended. And here you see a full view of that extension, together with the fountain in much later years. This fountain was placed, I think, in the 1930s. In 1902, the shrine hall construction was completed. All right, and let me show you this. And this is the shrine hall. In the early years when it was being built, this is the shrine hall. In 1894, when the construction started, we believe that it only started on the inner sanctum. This outer structure was not there. Only the inner sanctum was there. From what I was told and what research we have done, it cost, at the point in time, the budget was 4,000, the straight trading dollar, $4,000 at that time. It took almost 8 years to complete because there was a shortage of funds. But however, with funding from the members of the various communities, not just the Sinhalese community, the Chinese community, the Indian community, the structure was completed. And you can see the various stages of this. And today, the Vihara stands about like this. The Vihara today, the shrine hall today stands. These are in the earlier years. These are the later years where you can see the pagoda, which was built in 1972. And this is the early years, the interiors of the shrine hall. Now, I had shown you earlier a 1 foot tall marble image earlier. After that image, we had a 5 foot tall brass image. And this brass image has also been replaced with this particular image here, this tall, colossal Buddha image. All right. And here you see the Makara Torana, normally used at entrances of buildings, etc. In 1932 was the formal opening of the preaching hall. This was erected by P.H. Henry. And this is the building. It is a very popular venue. Mr. P.H. Henry built this in memory of his parents. He built it then, and this was the structure then. And it was in place for until about 40 years ago, which was later then brought down, and we had built the newer preaching hall, etc. In 1971, construction of the International Buddhist Pagoda and Sanchi style gate. This is it. You will see the construction process. This was probably in the late 70s. The structure of the Bodhi pagoda being made. All this is still in progress. Here you can see our late chief, Venerable Dhammananda, Venerable Hemasiri. This is Ms. LLG Jayawardena, our then secretary of the society. I believe this is Venerable Vipulasara. I'm not too sure, but that's what I believe it is. And here it is, a completed pagoda. And we call this the International Buddhist Pagoda. It houses the sacred relic of the Buddha, thereby being called the Sari Dagava. At the same time, we also built the Sanchi gate that you see here. And the pagoda at that time was opened by the then finance minister, Tun Tan Siew Sin, in 1971. Five main requisites of a vihara. What I mean by this, for a place of worship to be deemed as a vihara, we require 5 main requisites, 5 main different buildings, I should say. And these are it. You need a shrine hall, which is the shrine hall as you see here. We need a stupa. We need a Bodhi tree, monks' quarters, and monks' dining. And we've had these 5 entities, and this completed, having these 5 structures completed us and gave us the right to be called as a Buddhist Mahavira, as a vihara or a temple. These are the 5 requisites of a temple. What you see here is the inside of the current today shrine hall. You will see here the Buddha image in the seated posture, the image of Arahant Moggallana, image of Arahant Sariputta, a reclining Buddha. Many people tend to mistake this and say that this is the Mahaparinibbana. It is not. It is a reclining image. The Mahaparinibbana, whereby the feet, if you take a look at the feet here, the feet are separated. In the Mahaparinibbana Buddha image, the feet are together. And the head of the Buddha would be flat on a pillow. Here is an image of the standing Buddha image. And this is the Maitri Buddha, the future Buddha that we have down here. All these images that you see here are in the current shrine room, and this is the picture that you see down here of the interior view of the shrine hall. Outside the shrine hall is the belfry or the bell tower. You can see 1926 down there. Kindly watch this video. It gives you an overview of what the shrine hall looks like. I hope that gives you a view of what the shrine hall today looks like. In the background here is our pagoda. Later we'll have another little video of the pagoda itself. Thank you. Bodhi area. This is the Bodhi area. I don't refer to a single Bodhi tree. Why we call this the Bodhi area? Because we have two Bodhi trees. If you see in this picture here, we have two Bodhi trees, one on the left here. This is a night view. And there's another Bodhi tree on the right-hand side. There are images under each tree. And there is a third image in the center in a Samadhi posture, which is in the center or between these two trees. And this is a night view that you have. And around each Bodhi tree, we have the 28 Buddhas with the names written down there, in there. This is one of the Buddha images that we have, and you see the 28 Buddhas that we have around each Bodhi tree. There are 28 of them around each tree. And this is a picture of one of the trees. I will give you a video of this. This is a day view, obviously. Thank you. Before I skip to the next slide, if you take a look at the two trees here, the one on the left, if you take a look, the shade of the leaves are a little darker, and the one on the right, the shade of the leaves are a little lighter. We have a very interesting phenomena with these two trees. They all come from the same parent, from Anuradhapura in Sri Lanka. However, when they shed their leaves, they seem to take turns shedding their leaves. So right now, the tree on the left, in this picture, the tree on the left is in the process of shedding its leaves, whereas the tree on the right is blooming with new leaves. Why this happens, we don't know. People theorize. I only have to assume that it's something interesting happening down here. This is a view. This is the International Buddhist Pagoda, a view of the Buddha images that we have inside the pagoda. This pagoda was built in 1971. Why is it called an International Buddhist Pagoda? Because when it was first constructed, or the process was started, our late chief, Venerable Dr. Kesri Dhammananda, he went on a world tour. On his world tour, he met many world leaders, and many of them gave him a stupa or a Buddha image. And with all those images, we housed all these images in this pagoda. And so if you ever visited Buddhist Maha Vihara, you will see Buddha images and pagodas, small miniature pagodas from different parts of the world. The image that, and these were gifted by different Buddhist world leaders. This particular image that you see here, this was a gift by the Dalai Lama to us. It still is in our pagoda. This Buddha image that you see here was the 5-foot image that I mentioned, which was the second Buddha image at Buddhist Maha Vihara. It was in our shrine room, but ever since we built our large image, this particular image was moved to the pagoda. And every year during Vesak, this is the particular image that we put on our float procession and take it around Kuala Lumpur. Almost every year, for many years, we've been doing this. Here is a gift from His Holiness, the Lama of Mongolia, a Buddha image from Japan. And this is an exterior view of the pagoda outside, the external view. Friends, before I skip, if you take a look very closely at this, at the top here where my cursor is, you will see miniature pagodas. And what we have done in the construction of this is that we have made miniature models of pagodas from different parts of the world. If you take a look, and there are 8 different designs if you go around the building. This is an 8-sided structure. So you will see 8 different designs if you take a look. So we have this little miniature pagodas here. And the little structure that you see here is actually a stupa that we have, whereby the remains of the late Venerable Dr. K.C. Dhammananda are interned. And here is the Bodhi, part of the Bodhi tree. Yeah? Other structures at Buddhist Mahavihara, I pointed out to the 5 main structures that make a Vihara. Here are the other things that are popular, that people tend to look out for. This is our fountain. If you drive in or walk in through our main gates, it's the first thing that you see. The fountain that you see on the top left here, it was built initially to commemorate the 2,500-year anniversary of the Buddhist era. However, just for your information, prior to this fountain, actually there was a fountain in front of the shrine room. At the back down here, it was there. And primarily, this is the second fountain that was built. And then in 1986, this fountain went through a major renovation. And therefore, you will see it in this form, whereby there's a huge fiber-based lotus flower out there with water jets all around. And it still exists there today. Today, we have planted a lot of real-life plants inside there. Moonstone, that you see, a unique Sri Lankan sculpture placed at the entrance of the main shrine room and the pagoda. This is something that you will see on the floor, on the entrances to the shrine hall and our pagoda. Tradition says that walking over this and rubbing your feet over this as you walk in brings in a lot of good luck. So you can come out to Buddhist Mahavihara and you can try this out yourself. But we have 2 of this right now, one in front of the pagoda, the other one in front of our shrine. The other structure that you see here is the Asoka pillar. It was planted there when in 1995 to commemorate our Venerable Dr. K.C. Dhammananda in his inauguration to recognize his inauguration as the Chief High Priest of Malaysia and subsequently Singapore. Wisma Dhamma Chakra. The Wisma Dhamma Chakra that you see was completed in 1995. What is in the Wisma Dhamma Chakra is a hall on the ground floor, and the upper 3 floors, I should say the first floor, second floor, and the roof level, we had classrooms. We still have classrooms down there. On the first floor, we have a puja hall. However, since the Sunday school registered a large number of student population, we ran out of classrooms. So in 2017, we started a renovation exercise. And what we did was that if you take a look, if you compare this building and this building had a flat roof. It had a flat roof at the back. And what we did here in this renovated building in 2017 and 2018 is that we put in a roof structure. The flat roof, we put in a tiered roof up there of a Kandyan design. And we also changed the tower and where the Buddha image is. The Buddha image is still the same, but we changed the structure down here. Why did we change the structure, the roof structure? Because in the earlier design, the Buddha image was always hidden behind a pillar. So when we had the opportunity, we removed all the pillars so that the Buddha image was a lot more visible and we could get a 180-degree view of the Buddha image. Here we show you the ground floor of the Wisma Dhamma Chakra, and this is the entrance. This is the entrance of the Dewan Asoka. Dewan Asoka, there's a hall on the ground floor. This is the inside of the Dewan Asoka. It's a large hall. Pre-pandemic, it could house almost 800 people. However, now with the pandemic, we have to cut it down and probably to about 1/3 because of social distancing. And within the hall, if you take a look at the walls that I'm pointing out here, and right around the hall, we have murals of the life of the Buddha. And this is one of the murals. It's like it's a simulated copper tooling. It is not copper, but it's simulated copper tooling. All right. Again, here, I'm sorry about the pictures here. These were rushed and taken. But every pillar in the Wisma Dhamma Chakra, we have motifs that were designed. If you take a look, these were added in the 2017-2018 renovations. And every pillar, there are about 47 pillars in the building, which have capitals, I would say, that have been designed. These designs were by a Sri Lankan professor, Professor Sarat Maldania. He's from a professor and dean of the Faculty of Arts in Sri Lanka. We engaged him to design this, and these on every pillar we have these capitals or motifs, and these are all using the lotus flower as the basis, but in different forms. And every pillar has different teachings of the Buddha in there. In the first pillar on your left here, we have the Eightfold Path. So the second pillar, if you notice here, we talk is mentioned the Four Noble Truths, and here is one of the Dasa Paramitas, or the 10 perfections. And so if you come and visit Buddhisma Vihara, on every pillar in the Devana Asoka, you will see different motives and different teachings of the Buddha. We have the Tiratana, we have the Dasa Paramita, we have the Eightfold Path, we have the 5 precepts, the 4 Noble Truths, and the 10 meritorious deeds. Why did we do this? Because it's a building housing the Sunday school. We thought that the whole building needed to be a teaching structure. So every part of the building, we have planted or located teachings of the Buddha. Even if you take a look here, we have 2 lifts. When we did the renovation in the building of 2017 or 2018, we put in 2 lifts. So even the 2 lifts have been named Dhammanusari and Sattanusari, faith follower and doctrine follower. What does this mean? To attain enlightenment, there are 2 paths. The path of an enlightened person or the path of a lay person. Either path works. One's a little bit harder than the other, I'm told. Here on the first floor, we have a puja hall. It can house pre-pandemic about 300 people. On Sundays, the Sunday school uses this as their puja hall. This part that you see, BISDS, is part of the Sunday school entrance to this. They have their own entrance, own staircase, BISDS standing for Buddhist Institute Sunday Dhamma School. In the early years, we used to call our Sunday school. Then we changed it to Buddhist Institute. Later, it was expanded to be called Buddhist Institute Sunday Dhamma School. On the first floor of Wisma Dhamma Chakra, you will see we have an open air garden. It has a grass patch. It is not natural grass, it is artificial turf. And we have named one half of it Veluvana. Veluvana is the first monastery that was offered by King Bimbisara to the Buddha. And at this monastery, the Buddha has expounded many of his suttas or his teachings. And the second half, or the other part of our garden, is called Jetavana, our open air garden. And this was the second monastery offered to the Buddha by Anathapindika. And we have named this particular grove, this particular area of our first floor garden as Jetavana. Buddha images. If you go to that first floor, in that same floor where I showed you Jetavana and Veluvana, on one side you will see all these Buddha images. These Buddha images, the 5 images that you see here, if you take a look very closely at the hands, they show 5 different hand postures. And if you take a look at the standing Buddha images, there are different hand postures. In fact, there are 3 different hand postures. I've shown you just a small portion of this. What happens is that if anybody sponsors this image, we put their name up here. We can take a little metal plaque down here, we put their names up there. Here, the center part of this particular floor, we call it Isipatna. It is called the Meditation Pavilion. And here we have built a replica of the Sarnath Buddha image. The original Sarnath Buddha image, which is now in the Sarnath Museum, stands about 7 feet tall. Our replica is about 5 feet tall. But in my own experience, it is probably the most beautiful Buddha image that we have at Buddhist Maha Vihara. It is resplendent. It looks really good, whether in day or night. Right? And on the right here, you see something called the Ratnamali Yantra. It has got blessings or chanting carved into this, right round in this particular circle and also in this particular. And the way I'm told it is read is from the center and it goes out. You read it out. And but the second sentence, you read it back in, and then you read it out again, and you read it back in again, and you read out again. And it is supposed to have a blessing that is very, very significant, very sacred. And this particular thing is mounted at the top here. And many, many devotees come and have a tendency to come and stand under this, feeling that they are being blessed. Finally, take note of this. This is the Buddha on the top. This is the Makara Torana, the standing Buddha image. Particular image right at top of the tower. A chakra designed after a Bulakan wheel. Started to be This is our ground floor. The Buddha image is normally not here, but this was an arrangement done on the eve of Vesak in preparation for Vesak Day during the pandemic of 2020. Yeah? It was a very quiet Vesak. However, we set this up and we had a flag raising ceremony with the monks doing the chanting, but there was no audience because of the lockdown. And this video was done in 2020. Here is another thing. It's not a structure. It is a tree. This tree was planted sometime during the ministry of the late Venerable Kesri Dhammananda. This is the Sala tree. The flowers, when they are in full bloom, is quite a sight. Many people come to take pictures of this. Whenever we announce that the flowers are in full bloom, many photographers tend to come to take pictures. And this is one of the pictures. Yeah. All right. That was all the buildings that we had put up in the past. And I think it is important for us to talk about the chief incumbent monks who have been residing in the Vihara from the 1890s, 1895 onwards. All right. This is the first incumbent bhikkhu at Buddhist Maha Vihara, or the then Buddhist temple, Venerable Patalagedara Sri Dhammananda Mahathera. Please note, also another Dhammananda Mahathera. We do not have the picture of all the chief monks, but or monks, but this is the first that we have. Subsequently, in later years, in 1950, Venerable Panyasiri Mahathera, and then of course Venerable Dr. Kesri Dhammananda Mahathera. I think many of you would be very familiar with him. Those who are my age and maybe a little bit younger than me would know him. Very iconic man. A great leader. He changed, in all honesty, he changed the thinking of our community. When the Buddhist Maha Vihara started, we always looked after the singular Buddhist interest. We were always inward looking, very minimal, I would say, engagement with people on the outside of the Buddhist community, outside the Vihara. However, when Kesri Dhammananda came into the picture, his comment to him was that Buddhism is for everybody. So that's why the whole change. It is a huge turning point for us with his presence, and with him, the Vihara had an outward reach. Before people came to visit us, people came to see us, but we never reached out. But with his presence, with his authorship, his writing of his numerous publications, it is written here 74, I believe there are more. The Vihara changed course or changed direction. Yeah? Here is the stupa. When the late Kesri Dhammananda passed away in 2006, 31st August 2006. His remains were interned here. They still are there. We drifted from the norm. It was never a practice of Buddhist Mahavihara to intern the remains of monks in the temple ground, but this was an exception that we made in the late chief. This is our current chief, Venerable Datuk Kesri Dhammaratna Mahatera. Venerable Dhammaratna, his reputation, as opposed to, let's say, Dhammananda, who was a great orator, speaker, writer, Venerable Dhammaratna, his reputation was built on social and community interaction. I think many of us would know of him, know of his activities, his social welfare activities, and he's still very, very strong, which he carries it out outside the Buddhist Mahavihara premises under his own projects. Most of it, he has the Theravada Center, which he runs. He's the founder over there, and is a very well-known and and a growing entity out there. Resident monks who have been in Buddhist Mahavihara. If you take a look at this, there's a long list. All right. I'm not going to run through every name. I'll just skip through. And this is the second list of monks who are here and who are still, some of them who are still here. These are the present resident monks. You will see Venerable Kuala Lumpur Vijita, as it says here. Venerable Kotavilla Sri Dhamma, Venerable Sivanagela Sumanangala. If those who do not know this, if I go back, if you take a look, there is a practice in the Theravada Buddhist tradition to include the name of the area of the monk who comes on. If you take a look here, Gale, this monk has a name on Gaul. That is where he came from. So every monk who comes carries the name of the area that he comes from. So that is why the local monks that you will see here, like you see Venerable Dhammadina, who's passed on, he's called Venerable Dr. Klebang Kecil Dhammadina. You will see Malacca Mahinda, this is our Venerable Mahinda. So it is the practice of Theravada Buddhist monks to carry the name of the town or the city that they come from. These are the present day resident monks. Okay. These are former resident monks, all right? Venerable Pemaratana, who moved on further, I believe, up north. This is Venerable Hinapola Gunaratana, a very young picture of him. Today, he's very well known in the US worldwide. Some people refer to him as Bante G now. He was here, he served us for almost 10 years. He was also the principal of the Sunday school. Venerable Pemaloka was also a principal of the Sunday school. Venerable Hemasiri, he served us for about 4 years before he went back to Sri Lanka. And this is Venerable Vimla Jodi Mahatera, another monk who served us for 10 years, more than 10 years, I think 11 years. He's now back in Sri Lanka, very successful. He runs the Buddhist Cultural Center, distributing many books throughout Sri Lanka and the world. And he also has opened, I think recently, a few years ago, a nunnery, a place where many, if I'm not wrong, he's got about 40 nuns living there. A beautiful place. I've seen it up in the hills. A very good place to visit. Another thing about Venerable Vimla Jodi is that when our Wisma Dhamma Chakra was built in 1995, he was the prime mover to run the program, to do fundraising and complete the building. Venerable Punnaji, upon the passing of the late Kesri Dhammananda, there was a vacuum, there was a gap. We did not have teachers, we didn't have good speakers. And when Venerable Punnaji arrived in 2009, and he began to reside permanently at Buddhist Mahavihara he passed away in 2018, but for that period from 2009 to 2018, he was very focused on the suttas and meditation. Right? Other organizations in Buddhist Mahavihara. Buddhist Mahavihara has 7 buildings. I've not run through all the buildings, I don't intend to. But there are other organizations that were formed at and reside now at Buddhist Mahavihara's premises. Buddhist Missionary Society, Malaysia. It was founded in 1962 by the late Venerable Dhammananda. It was a watershed moment for Malaysian Buddhism and the Buddhist world. Why? Because for the first time, there was a concerted, systematic, and continuous effort was taken to publish free books, Buddhist books for mass dissemination. Today, BMSM has opened branches in Shalam, in Kajang, Dengkil, Sabah, Putrajaya. Still very, very active in welfare, in youth and women's affairs. And today, it is very ably run by Sister Lo Pai Lin, and she is now been the president of Buddhist Missionary Society. They have their own entities. They are still using the consider Buddhist Maha Vihara as their birthplace. Buddhist Institute Sunday Dhamma School, probably it is the oldest Sunday school formed in 1929 with 12 Sinhalese students. Today, after more than 80 years, and at its peak, it had 1,400 students registered at its peak. But attendance has always been, at its peak again, about 1,000. And that is why the need to build and renovate the building. However, in recent years, because there were so many Buddhist centers opening around in the Klang Valley, many people are now going to the Buddhist centers or the Buddhist schools, Sunday schools in their own neighborhoods, whether it's in Subang Jaya or in Bandar Utama, etc. This is the activities of our Sunday school. You will see here at the left here, the Sunday school children offering dana. Here, children in their activities, a group student progress. And this is our adult class, Brother Lau Kai Kiong. We have two adult classes, one in Mandarin and one in English. Right? Brother Lau runs the Mandarin version, the Mandarin class. Friends of the Vihara. I'd like to take a moment to explain what Friends of the Vihara is all about. In our many years of existence, many individuals, many people come forward to offer their services. Many people come forward to do cook food for the needy, open up center for Chinese traditional medicine, seniors club, etc. And we felt that all these people need to be given a brand name. All right. So in 2009, we created this brand name called Friends of the Vihara. If you want the Bahasa Malaysia version, I suppose you would call it the Rakan Vihara. And with that, this particular organization, it was very ably mentored and driven by Venerable K. Sri Dhamma. He was the main driver. He was the focal point. He was the magnet that pulled people together. And with that, over the years, and up to today, he is the advisor to this particular organization of Friends of the Vihara. A very dynamic group. We deem this as the Buddhist Maha Vihara ambassadors. Why? Because they go out. They take our service out. Here you will see the activities that they do, feeding the needy. All right. Every week they cook food and send it to the homeless. During the pandemic, it was frozen for a while, but however, in the month of November this year and December, they restarted this exercise of doing this. Here you see the traditional Chinese medicine. This used to be handled almost every week. Here is a charity carnival organized by the Friends of the Vihara. Dhamma for the Deaf. It was formed in 1999. The Sasana Abhivadi Varna Society was the first Buddhist society in the country to conduct Dhamma classes for the deaf, for the hearing impaired. A group of 100 members with around, it is a loose group of about 100 members, but regularly 20 of them attend classes. All right. It is a Dhamma for the deaf. The classes are handled in sign language. And here you will see a very familiar face for those who know. This is Sister Tan Lee Bee. She is an interpreter and advisor to Dhamma for the deaf. And why do we show this picture? It's not to show Muhyiddin's face, but actually is to show her here. And here she is as a sign language person. So if you tune on to RTM today, I'm not too sure whether she's still there. She was the first sign language interpreter on RTM. And that is her. And she's our advisor and interpreter in doing our classes. A very dedicated person, whom we are very, very grateful for. Kesri Dhammananda Institute. This is an affiliate of the Buddhist and Pali Institute University. We offer diploma and degree classes, masters, and also PhD studies. Prominent visitors to Buddhist Maha Vihara over the last 127 and 130 years. We had many people visitors. I'm going to run through a few of them. I hope you will recognize some faces or at least know their names. First picture at the top left here is the poet, an Indian poet, Rabindranath Tagore. I do not know if any of you know. He was a famous Indian poet who traveled in this region, and he visited the Buddhist Maha Vihara, or the Buddhist temple then. If you take a look, there's a picture of him, the group photo of the committee members of then with him there. This is a picture of His Holiness, the Dalai Lama. He visited in 1988, visiting Buddhist Maha Vihara, and here meeting our late Kesri Dhammananda. At the back here is our Mr. M.H. Albert, our then president or vice president at that time. The next few slides are all pictures of government leaders, primarily from Sri Lanka that I've shown you. Presidents and prime ministers of Ceylon, Sri Lanka today. Here you will see Mrs. Bandaranaike, the first lady prime minister in the world. She visited us. Here you will see Mahinda Rajapaksa. Here the previous president, Sirisena Maitipala. Malaysian leaders who visited us. Interesting story here. I hope many of you recognize the Malaysians who are in this group. Our first Prime Minister, Tunku Abdul Rahman, came to Buddhist Maha Vihara. The reason why he came is that we were having a novitiate program, and one of his good friends, Dato Yu Eng Hock, I think Yu Eng Hock it was, who was actually being ordained, a temporary ordination. He came to visit, and the Tunku at that point in time, get the name right. Sorry. 1972. Yeah, it was Dato Yu Eng Hock, correct. In 1967, Dato Yu Eng Hock was being ordained, and the Tunku was the person who offered him the robes. It is a break from tradition. Normally, the robes are offered to the person by the parents. So these Tunku and Dato Yu Eng Hock were very good friends. So Tunku played the role of the father, and he offered the robes. That did not do Tunku's political career very much of a favor. His political rivals made a big hue and cry about it. But he was a true gentleman, a true statesman. He carried out his duty. We have a picture of the offering, actually. It's not displayed here today. The second picture you see in the center here is Tun Abdullah Ahmad Badawi that we have here, who visited us here in 2008. And here is the then Prime Minister, Datuk Sri Muhammad Najib. But yes, he did come and visit us in 2013. The other people, other religious leaders who came to visit us here, the chief monk of Bhutan, the archbishops, the then archbishop, this is the current, Julian Liao is the current archbishop. Now coming to our regular activities at the Buddhist Maha Vihara, these are our daily activities, dana, evening puja. Just please bear in mind, even during the lockdown, during the pandemic, daily pujas, evening pujas were carried out, and we broadcast it live on Facebook for a long time until we reopened. When the full lockdown was over, when it was lifted, then we stopped broadcasting and continued with the daily pujas live. These are our weekly activities that we have. Sunday school, Dhamma talks for the deaf, Dhamma talks in Mandarin, Dhamma talks in English, meditation. This is the full moon and new moon service. Occasionally, we have it on a good day when the weather is good. We have it in the open. I'd like to speed up my presentation. All right. These are our yearly activities that we have that you see here. The Chap Gome, this is the annual merit offering, the Chinese New Year celebration, Sinhala New Year. You take a look at our Sinhala New Year show, a blood donation that we have twice a year actually, during just before Vesak, and the other one is during the novitiate program. We try and coincide our blood donation during the Ramadan month because the blood bag tends to run low, and also the Vesak Day procession. This is the start of the procession. Yearly activities, our annual blessing, National Day blessing, our caring and sharing program, our novitiate program here, and here is the Katina ceremony. Vesak Day celebrations. This is a giant lantern, very Sri Lankan in tradition that we light. This is the open air blessing on the eve. This is called a giant pandal. It shows the life of the Buddha in lights up here that you see here. And this is the blessing, the holy water done in the open. And this is the early morning, all right? The early morning of Vesak. We sing the Jayamangala Gatha by the Sinhalese community. Yeah? Here's the Katina ceremony. After the robe has been offered, these ladies rush to sew the robes. All right, they do it normally within 5 hours. Here's the offering of the main robe. These are two things. This is part of the procession, and here's the final offering of the Katina ceremony. This is a nice wedding that we have organized. Police Day, other activities, Police Days, where we have a blessing service, interreligious forums. This is something how we extend ourselves outside the community. Yeah? This is blessing service for various disasters that we had. The earthquake and tsunami for Japan, Thailand flood relief. This was a program that we did. A special prayer for the MH370, one of the saddest things that could happen, and we were hit with the MH17 soon, not too long after that. A very sad thing for us, for the Malaysian community per se. Now, my next item is a very current day program. It's a little video. I hope you'll have patience to watch it. It is a program that we did during the current COVID pandemic. It is a food relief program. Kindly watch this video.
Living in a world so cold, with so many lost all hope, they don't know where to go. We need a miracle to recognize the power of giving from the heart. It'll go so far. Looking around me, all I see is creation, longing for love, hoping assurance and a friend, someone to trust. Humanity, it's an emergency. Look all around you, can you see what I see? We need more generosity. We need more generosity. More love for you and her and me. We need more generosity. Yeah. Give what you have to someone. Happiness, love, and trust our possibilities. In the reality we're desperately in need of. Anybody else in need of a change of heart and mind? We gotta heal the world in harmony with all of mankind. All I see is a sense of this community, broken, afflicted memories. We need love.
Before I skip to the next slide, let me explain a little bit about the COVID-19 project. It is a project where we raised $300,000 in 1 month. It was during the pandemic, during the lockdown, very difficult time to operate because the volunteers did not come to the temple. Normally, whenever we have a project like this, easily 100 volunteers sign up. However, during this pandemic, we had a huge struggle with that. Raising funds wasn't too difficult. Buying the provisions that we did was a bit of a struggle because there was a shortage in the market. However, distribution was a huge task. However, we had some good people that we knew who were able to transport and distribute these things. However, it took us 1 week to make the distribution. Our distribution went as far as Tawau in Sabah. And that we did by not sending the goods over. We transferred money to our representatives over there who bought the provisions for distribution. These are other workshops that we did, a cancer workshop, a world religion. And these are our publications. We are proud of our publications. We have a newsletter. It's called the BMB Digest, run by Mrs. Pamela Jayawardena. She's been doing it for many years, ably done. We've been doing it in hard copies. We have, however, switched over to soft copies. It's not a question of just cost. I think everybody is becoming tech savvy, so we are switching over. In our second column in the middle here, you will see our publications. To talk about our publications, we say to date, we have probably published, when we begin to run Buddhist Maha Vihara, begin to run our own publications, to date, we have published more than 2 million free publications, all right? Either in the form of books, in CDs, distributed it, and we have also done it in 30 languages, or more than 30 languages, if I'm not wrong. The update will be more than 30 languages. This particular project is very ably managed by our Vice President, Brother Premasiri Buddhadasa. And then on the third column down here, you will see Dhamma Dana, Dhamma sharing. These are the talks that we organize. This is managed by our secretary, Brother Tilak Leslie. Those who are interested, you can join our Buddhist Maha Vihara page, public page, and follow our talks. And we do this on a weekly, on a Friday, and then sometimes we have it. Most of the talks are done in English. Occasionally we do it in Mandarin, and very rarely, but we do also in Sinhala. This is an interesting pictures. BMV through the eyes of non-Buddhists. I'd like to take a moment to explain this. A few years ago, a group of photographers, young photographers, called us and said they wanted to come to Buddhist Maha Vihara to take pictures. And there were a group of Catholic photographers. Of course, when we show people around the place, we tend to show very iconic things like Buddha images and tall buildings, etc. However, this group of, I think, 6 photographers who came, took pictures and showed us a side of Buddhist Maha Vihara that we ourselves do not see or notice, you should use the word. So if you take a look at these pictures, you will see the things which would be irrelevant to us. You know, the ashes of a joss-stick, inverted reflection in our joss-stick urn. This is in a pool of water. It's an inverted image of the shrine hall then, which was red in color. This is the moonstone, which has water in it after rain. This is the underside of one of our arches. This is the top of the head of a Buddha image. This is the back or the back end of a chakra that we have on our walls. These are very interesting pictures. These pictures, if you wish to see all these pictures, go to our website. I think we have posted most of their pictures there in our gallery. I invite you to go and see. It's a good thing to look at because these are pictures through the eyes of non-Buddhists. And we just felt that it was very interesting, very captivating. And there were a group of photographers who came at dawn and left only at dusk in the evening. So they were around for more than 12 hours taking pictures. Future planned developments. All right, I'm coming almost to the end of my presentation. Future planned development, here is a particular building. It doesn't look very nice. This is the Wisma Sri Dhamma. This was supposed to be part of our phase 2 when we were doing our Wisma Dhamma Chakra. However, when we started on this project, I won't say disaster struck, we found something very unfortunate. The piling of this particular building was at that time, which is about 45 years old, was in wood, and all the piling was rotten. Basically, it turned into liquid. So primarily, this building was floating. So it was declared unsafe by the engineers and the architects. So what did we have to do? It took us a while, almost more than 6 to 9 months to design what to do. And we came up with a rescue plan of how to rescue this building. And the rescue plan, which was supposed to have started about a year ago. However, the pandemic was around and we couldn't kick it off. And we did not kick off a fundraiser. However, we decided this is what the future of this particular building will look like. This is the perspective view of what the building will look like. The Wisma Sri Dhamma will now be renamed Wisma K. Sri Dhammananda after our late chief. After the reinforcing of the building of the foundation, we will be able to add 2 more floors up here. All right, we'll be able to add 2 more floors up here. And these 2 floors will be reserved for visiting monks to come, nuns to come and stay. In the past in Buddhist Maha Vihara, we had never quite catered for nuns. We were always struggling to find a place for them to stay. We have decided to be a bit, to provide a lot more space for nuns to come and stay so that visiting nuns can come and stay and serve us. And with this, the building will become almost 5 stories tall, and we will be installing a set of lifts on this side. And then if you take a look here, we are actually reconstructing a replica of the old P.H. Henry Hall. The facade of this building will be a replica of the old P.H. Henry Hall. If you take, this is what we will be planning to do. In future, we hope if the pandemic eases up and if it's right, we can raise funds, and we hope to launch it sometime next year. It is already more than 1.5 years late. The unfortunate thing of the pandemic, but this is where we are. Release this last video from us. It's a night view. Thank you, friends. Why do I show you this video? And I'm going to pause at this particular point. If I take a look at this particular building, this particular video, if you take a look at this picture, you will see in the background the Twin Towers, you will see the KL Towers, you will see the TRX building, you will see so much of development around here. Please bear in mind, 130 years ago, this was hinterland. It was a very rural area, but today development, a temple that was in a very rural area is very much an urban temple. Buddhist Maha Vihara over the 130 years has become very, very much an urban temple. However, I invite all of you to come because the environment is still quite a serene, calm environment, and many people from these very hustling and hustle and bustle of society come in the evenings to relax and calm and come for their pujas down here. And I think this is where we are today. This is where Buddhist Maha Vihara is today. Very much an urban temple, a very urban metropolitan city. Friends, all the things that I gave to you, this is one thing I have to talk about. The 100 years of Buddhist Maha Vihara, most of the research and the material that we got out of here was this particular book that I show on the left-hand side. I have a copy of that book here. I'll show it to you here. This book is this thick. It's about 410 pages. It was written, it was compiled, it was researched by Mr. H.M.A. De Silva, one of our members. He was a former officer in the education department. It took 10 years to do this. Dedication that unparalleled. He spent years, I use the word, in the archives, extracting information. This is not a book that is easy to read. It is a reference book, but I used it in preparation of the slides here. My team used this, and we are always indebted to Mr. H.M.A. De Silva for compiling all this information. This book exists in our library. If you wish to borrow it, you can. Give us a call and come and pick up this book if you want to have a look. We do not have many copies left, but we are very, very indebted to Mr. H.M.A. De Silva for this. Of course, now we have to think about what are we going to, who's going to compile the next 100 years. This is our contact information. If anybody wants, if anybody needs, go to our website. Our phone numbers are there. Then here is my team. 3 young ladies. They're all sitting down here in this room here with me. Our researchers and designers, they are all still in the education, still being educated, doing masters, just completing their degrees, doing matriculation or doing first degrees. These ladies have helped me ever since this particular project started a couple of months ago. Between their study times and during their university times, and trying to match my working hours. They have been really, really wonderful. I like to thank them. They don't wish to come on screen. They say they all don't look good for this particular video. But I like to express a word of appreciation to Diani, Hemavi, and Sevendi. They are 3 sisters. Their surname is Jayavira. And a huge thank you also to their parents who have been kind enough. We are in the temple today. They were kind enough for them to stay here late to help me out with this particular project.